a co-editor on the first sex discrimination book that with me and two other women. There was Eleanor Marion Wright Edelman, another famous African American person who started the Children's Defense Fund, and let's see, Dorothy Battle Rankin, who went on to be a newspaper publisher and practice, I think, in Delaware. And let's see, there was a Rhoda Lackritz, who was a law librarian. We had another law librarian, I'm going to, Gail Beckman. Sylvia Orland, who was a partner, one of the first women partners at a big Chicago firm. I think it was Sidley Austin. And so there were lots of really neat women.
Did you all stick together?
Well, Eleanor and I became really close friends, and I think, you know, there was a sense of mutual support, but we didn't really stick together. I mean, because, see, women couldn't, there was no place for us to live together. The women weren't allowed in the law school dormitories. Can you believe that? So the women became kind of scattered in their living situation.
Well, where did you live?
An apartment. You know, you got an apartment. There was our first year. I lived in a law. See, at that time, Yale didn't have undergraduate women, so they had women only in the graduate schools. So I was in the graduate women's dorm, but it was awful place to live.
Why?
You know, tiny little rooms and huge, you know, common bathrooms, and you know, it was like not like I imagined being. And the men had these wonderful suites that were right in the law school with fireplaces and everything. And so, but my second and third year, Eleanor and I got a place together, and we lived with the girlfriend of one of our fellow students, Judy Stein, who was a history student. So,
talk to me about what it was like at this law school, going to classes, and were they big classes, you know, few women in them? How was that for you?
What it was like is so, I having seen it change in so much in my lifetime, from being a student now to being a professor for 30 years, it was so different that it's almost unimaginable, because you were constantly aware that you were someone different and that all eyes were on you. I mean, you really did stand out. And in many classes, I was the only woman in the class as I went through law school, and always, you know, one of two or three. I mean, there was never a lot of women in any class, and there certainly were no classes that had a majority of women, or that were aimed at women.
What about female professors? Any?
No, none. There was one at Yale, Ellen Peters. She had been the first one appointed, but she was away the whole time I was there, so I never had a female professor, even for a second. I mean, you know, not even a guest professor or anybody. And so it was really, and when I look back on it, but honestly, I was happy as a clam in law school. I just loved it, and because I didn't know anything better, and I certainly couldn't imagine anything other than what it was, but I really did love the study of law, luckily.
Let me go back and ask a little superficial question. Was there a dress code of any kind for
No, there wasn't, although we did all dress up to go to class.
What does that mean, dress up?
Well, it means that the women wore stockings. This was pre-pantyhose, you know, days, so it was really, you know, girdles and garter belts and stockings and heels and skirts. Nobody wore pants. No women wore pants. And then the men wore, you know, sometimes they wore suits and ties, but they always wore like chinos and shirts and a coat they'd often wear a coat and jacket, and the professors always dressed up, usually in suits, but sometimes in sports jackets. So